Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. I have a great episode for you today. We're going to break some boundaries. I'm speaking with Miss Monique A.J. Smith, better known as the leadership strategist and athleticpreneur. That was a mouthful. How you doing today, ma'am?
I'm doing fabulous. And you?
I'm awesome. I'm also coming off a little break, so I'm a little rusty. So this is going to be quite interesting today. So let's get into it. We were talking earlier, and I love how you represent not only for women, but women of color in the sports arena. Let's tell the people a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, we were really talking about my beginnings.
Yes.
You know, talking about your daughter, her interest in sports. And I was saying that I played a support role since 8th grade, but it was not a cheerleader. Mm-hmm. I was a scorekeeper. So I began my love of sports from an analysis standpoint because I was a writer and I wanted to be able to tell a story. Mm-hmm. I ironically grew up with Tony Massenberg, who ended up playing for Maryland, mm-hmm. and stayed in the league for 14 years. So I was his statistician and his scorekeeper. And when Lefty came, I had to compile all his stats. Mm-hmm. Ironically, I ended up going to college and majoring in public relations. And the first internship I saw on the bulletin board was for the CIAA. And I ended up being an intern for the CIAA in 1988. One of four, and the rest of the three were all guys.
Okay.
And ironically, I knew what to do because I had been keeping scores, and our job was to pick the player of the week and the coach of the week and to compile stats. Mm-hmm. And then I did a couple of other internships in television and whatnot. But ironically, sports information is really sports PR. And that's who I started beginning to work with at Hampton University, the Count Conaway's, who trained me with that. And my first job, straight out of college, was a sports information director for a college in Lawrenceville, Virginia, St. Paul's College. Mm-hmm. I was there for 8 years. I was interim athletic director at 28 years old. I'm now 53, so you see I have some time period. And I did a little bit of Division I compliance. And then I came back to the 757 and worked for the CIAA for 13 years. They went through a leadership change, and so I began to become a consultant for the Ncaa as a leadership consultant, doing workshops and staff retreats. And so I began entrepreneurship full-time in 2013. But ironically, what I enjoyed about my job the most when I went to CIAA was working with the women and helping them prepare and position themselves for the athletic director's seat. Mm-hmm. And so many of the women that you see now, especially the Ncaa and the CIAA, came from the foundations that we did from retreats and whatnot. And I've just taken it nationally with the podcast, A Chat in a Garden, because the garden means about growing. And that's what my company's called, Seeds of Empowerment, where I plant seeds of empowerment to lead others to greatness. And I just began to do that on a national scale because everybody knew me for that. I was already a consultant in 2005, helping other conferences build their women leadership. And so I was already known for that. And the podcast just allowed me to have conversation. And more importantly, what I thought was just so interesting, and it happened to me very recently. People come to me and ask me, or not people per se, but yeah, people who are in leadership roles looking for minority candidates.
Mhm.
And that happened to me very recently. 2 weeks ago, a university contacted me and said they didn't have any minority candidates in their pool. Can I help? Man, I just did my click of my fingers, and I had two candidates to apply, and she was really impressed with one of them. So she's in the process right now of
Mhm.
interviewing. So that's what I'm really known for, is empowering others um, to grow in their leadership. And so my tagline is uh, growing leaders one workshop at a time.
Nice, nice. So, all right. So there's a whole lot there. So I wanna get into it. Did your all right? So your love of sports, was it there before you actually got into sports, or was it because of the administrative role that you held?
Well, then you're gonna really blow your mind with this.
Okay.
Okay, so I grew up watching the TV show The White Shadow. Remember that
Yeah,
TV?
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, I told my age there.
Yes, yes. Well, ironically, Thor in the TV show is my cousin.
Okay.
It's a distant cousin.
Okay.
And so as a kid, I'm watching the show because my cousin's in the show. But what you learn from watching it is the sociology of sports,
Mhm.
how society impacts sports and sports impacts society. Now, I didn't know there was a thing
Mhm.
until I started teaching it at Hampton, that that's exactly where it is. You think of the coach as your father figure, then the team becomes your family, and then the things that they addressed, in the locker room. Um, I remember one episode, there was a kid with special needs, and the teacher told the coach, who was also the PE teacher, that he had to learn how to incorporate. And again, this is in the 70s, when kids with special needs were beginning to integrate into the classroom. And so you just think about that in the 70s and still now, inclusion, diversity. And you see the head coach going through all of the dynamics of himself and then beating himself up. And how do I deal with this, and how I deal with the players with it? And I use the show to teach in class, but now I use the TV show All American because they can really relate to that.
Yeah, my
And how do
daughter.
you
My daughter is all about All American right now.
Oh yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's more of what it teaches you about leadership, because I've been a leader in all my life.
Mhm.
I was SJ president of high school. When we were doing bulletin boards as a kid, I was always the one that chose to like lead the group. And so, and I'm from a small town. I'm from Waverly, Virginia. So sports
Known,
is
known,
really,
known for the land of speeding tickets.
yeah, this is true. I saw Senator Lucas on 460 at a restaurant, and I told her drive. I said, make sure that you drive the speed limit on 460. Um,
There's two
so yeah,
towns. There's two towns I know on 460, and it's both because of speeding tickets, and they both start with W.
oh yeah, we know.
Warrington and Waverly.
Oh wow, wow.
Yeah, you
Well,
slow
I
it
think
down.
Warrington is on 50. On Oh my gosh, I used to live in Lawrenceville, 58.
Uh-huh.
Those are 58. We talking about 460 going toward Petersburg,
Well, if
not
you're in
going.
Virginia and you driving through any county that starts with a W, you
You
need
need
to
to
slow
slow
it
down.
down.
This is Windsor. Yeah, this
Yep.
is true. So yeah, the love of sports as it relates to that, and then being a reporter and want to promote. I always wanted to promote um, our people to All American
Mhm.
and All Conference, and so that's how I treat the administrators. I try to use my background in PR because that comes to me naturally. The slogans come to my head of how to promote them Because again, it's like earworms. It's like if you have a ballot of who is going to be chosen All-American, when you have a candidate slate, if you've seen that person's name before, I bet you anything they're going to bring you in for an interview because they've heard of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I take both that combination. And ironically, because I did know sports at Hampton, we had a TV show and I was only a female sports reporter because I know how to take the stats and tell a story.
Mm-hmm. And that's what another question I had for you. Being that you're so involved with PR and sports, have you thought about a sports broadcasting role?
Oh, actually, it's funny you should say that. That was my internships in college. I interned at BET and I interned at locally at the TV3 when I
Mm-hmm.
was in college. And I didn't necessarily like the cutthroatness, the amount of time for your creativity. I would prefer to give out the message from a PR standpoint versus going to go grab it. And so I like to, okay, let's be honest, control the issue. I like to control the message.
Okay.
That's the answer. But I like my podcast, even though I fell into that. Actually, a local publicist, Nikki Curry, is the person who said, I got this podcast thing. Would you like to? I have another client trying to have the longest podcast ever. Can you help us out? She didn't know I had a background in radio.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, sure. She said, you want to be a host of a podcast? And I said, I have control issues. I'd rather be the host. And she said, oh, you know what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I did major. And it's really producing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you produce a championship, you decide for the CLA for 13 years, you actually decide what's going to happen next and next and next. And so that's really how I do my podcast. I mean, honestly, and if you ever came to one of my banquets, I would have a theme. It was probably something Earth, Wind, and Fire that I'm trying to like get in your mind
Right.
that you are a shining star. You know what I mean? And I'm just trying to implant a message to you while you're waiting for your all conference award. So that's really how again, people say that I have the moral victory, but again, my students, I'm telling you, it is interesting because that's how I came to it from. But when you on a college campus and you dealing with the kids, it goes right back to the white shadow.
Mm-hmm.
You got to tell the kids that you understand them more than what they can do for you on the court or any kind of playing services. They come to you from other homes. And if you, I mean, we had kids from New York coming to Lawrenceville, one stoplight town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to help socialize them into that. You got kids who've been the man or the woman on their team, and they got to start all over
Mm-hmm.
again. And that's going to play a little bit with their psyche. So they got to have some place to go. And so what I mean, as an SID, I would write their hometown paper and write an article there. They had never seen their name in print.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be able to cultivate that. And so that, I mean, my 30 years in this business has really been about relationships, and relationships win championships.
All right, so let me ask you this. Do you like playing with the numbers or do you like playing with the people?
Well, I started out liking the numbers because I could tell a story from the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But as you get older and you stay in something long enough, you know that your attention span may not be there. Like if I go to a game now, I'm not looking to see who has the rebound. I'm looking to see where is security, where are the exits. Now I'm looking, what's the COVID cleaning process? You
Right.
follow me?
Uh-huh.
I look at different things. I'm really about policies, procedures, and the administration of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then now what I really love is teaching the next generation of administrators. I have a student that will send me an article and graduate 3 years ago. And when the name likeness and image came about, they sent it to me like, ha ha, they had cracked open, and I know that the entry level positions that they will have, and I kind of train them for that. And so even in my consulting business, I have women who come to me who want to get their next job in athletic administration or to move up in advancing. And we just last night we had our monthly mastermind, and a young lady was saying that I would switch her mind, growth mindset from fixed mindset, to tell her how to promote herself for the position that she wanted. So I do a lot of mind work
Mm-hmm.
to get them ready, to get that soul ready for that good positioning. And one of the things I did do was to create a magazine because, I don't know, and I call it significance
Mm-hmm.
because I think you should seek significance instead of success, because significance is what that you leave after you're gone. And so one of the things that's interesting is that people have a hard time promoting themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say, and this is I mean, changing leadership is a common thing. I mean, think about it. Your bank has had several names because people consolidated
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. So almost every field, every industry has the same thing. So I can't say make yourself pink slip proof, but I would say to make sure your name stays out there, you got to learn how to package your specialized knowledge. So, what is something that you've done at your campus, or your conference, or your department that you saw, that you created, that you can create someplace else? So, one of my clients works at DC Public Schools, and she brought girls flag football, and she brought esports. So that becomes her expertise marketing. So how do you package that so that you can keep your name out there? And I like to say, put a dot, dot, dot between your name and the university versus a comma, because you want to be able to know for what you bring to the table to the university.
So you scaring me because every time I ask you a question, I'm still back on the introduction questions, right? But every time you
Uh-huh.
give me an answer, you pull something else I want to talk about. So now I still want to talk about sports. I want to talk
Okay.
about the magazine, and then now you're
Okay.
talking about esports. So I'm not sure which way we're gonna go right now.
All right. Okay.
All right,
All
so let
right.
me go back to one of my earlier questions, and I'm real scared about what the answer is about to be.
Okay.
So, what was the difference between the CIAA and working with the NCAA?
Well, working with them, I was an independent contractor
Mm-hmm.
for the Ncaa. And it was a blessing because at first they just gave me $3,000 a month and was waiting for them to call me to go do a university. And I was like, "You sure you don't want to like me do something? You just giving me money." So I just said, "Well, go ahead and create your workshops." And because what I was really doing was doing disc assessment and then communication workshops. But because I had already done those type of things for the CIAA, I could take any business book and just make them a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
Like I did one last night off of this book called The Women Code, and used it for my my clients. And so yeah, I mean, again, that's the promoting and the educator in me, and the producer. I can take it and make it grow. Thus, it's called Chat and Garden. So, the CIAA, it was different because that was my job.
Mm-hmm.
Being a consultant is different because I don't have to be dealing with budgets and travel. You send me somewhere and I just do. And it started my entrepreneur piece. Now I will say I had a learning curve because as the educator, to give things away for free. I had to learn how to package myself um, as an entrepreneur to get paid, to monetize. And so one of the things that I did, I took my inheritance to learn how to become an entrepreneur versus getting my PhD, and that has made all the difference. So yes, the working for the CAA, I worked for them, but for the NCAA, I was an entrepreneur. That started my journey, and I was an independent contractor, and so now the NCAA, it changed again leadership. They took their money from education and put it in enforcement. And they said, yes, you can still do the workshop for the university, but they got to pay you directly. And I was like, bet. That means I can charge more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I am now.
So once you got a taste of the difference, needless to say, you were hooked.
Well, yeah. I mean, because almost every move I've ever made, I'm measuring the impact. And I realized, because it took me a lot to leave a college campus. When you see how much I love the students and getting them all Americans and promoting them and just helping them holistically get ready for life. It was hard to leave that kind of interaction because the conference office is more corporate and you don't see the kids until championship time and you don't have time to be doing that kumbaya moments,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And so the administrators became my students and trying to mold them. And that's the kind of the difference. And so when I saw that I could have more impact as a consultant, I was like, okay, I get it. And honestly, I'm being led by the Lord because I'm going like, if this is supposed to work, things are going to pop.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
it's been popping for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right, so let's talk about. I want to talk about your connection to Hampton University.
okay.
So you started out as a student at Hampton University.
Yes, I did. I came to Hampton in 1986 and I majored in mass media arts and then I fell upon LeCount Conaway, sports information. And really, I was more like I was a student sports information director. By the time my junior and senior year, we were hosting the Division II National Championship and I was in charge of the press box in 1989 and 1990. The first time I was students that put me in a cottage on campus. The second time they put me in a hotel.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I have a long history with Hampton. My mother, my father, and my little sister all graduated from Hampton.
Okay. So I'm Dynasty, and everybody has. Well, I don't know if your parents would have a name,
My
but
mom was the first year of Ogre,
okay, all
and
right,
my sister is Ogre also.
okay. Well, Dynasty, you only can be just one. We're the only class that we ever call Dynasty.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm the black sheep, and I'll give you
Okay.
two guesses of what school I went to.
Nova State.
Okay, I just had to get that
That's
out.
special.
Yes.
That green and gold, huh? That green and gold. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Behold, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, your athletic director and I are very good friends, Melanie Webb. We used to work together at CIAA. And so I've had a couple of retreats up in Williamsburg, and she's led a couple of them. So I'm very, very connected with Norfolk State as well.
I always like to ask anybody that I talk to because graduates of HBCUs have a special place in my heart.
Well, and the young lady in the latest magazine is doing DEI work in the athletic department. And I just thought it was interesting because many people don't think DEI work, that's diversity, education, and inclusion. No, diversity, equity, and inclusion for HBCU because you would think that's already diversity. But
Mhm.
even HBCU has diversity. I teach race and gender at Hampton. The first activity we do is when did you first recognize you were different?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of differences in the person and when you knew you were different and how you were accepted or not accepted has a lot to do how you interact with people going forward.
Yes, yes. So, do you think that your experiences at HBCU help mold you into the person you became? How much of an influence was it coming to a university like Hampton University?
Well, I think that uh, no matter where I would have gone, would have shaped me. So
Mm.
that's just That's just normal socialization. Wherever you are, it shapes how you move.
Mm.
Um, and I will say that in the seventh grade, I had decided I was going to go to Hampton University. So
Okay.
I grew up on Virginia State's campus. That would have been grade 13.
Mm.
Almost every teacher there taught school with my parents. They either taught in Sussex County, moved on there. So I wasn't going to do that.
Mm.
And so it and I will say any kid who grows up on a college campus develops a sense of confidence.
Mm.
I didn't, you know, you hear people, they're hungry, but they're waiting for everybody to go to the cab. I didn't have that problem. When somebody wanted to go, I went to the library. I didn't have to have a crowd with me,
Right.
you know? So it develops independency. And I would say, I went to Hampton, but I will say 8 years at St. Paul's College
Mm.
really developed me as a leader because um, there I was able to bring experiences of Hampton to the young people there. Because I remember if they had a problem with their bill, I said, bring the bill to me and I will try to find where the holes are. But the difference is when they went back to the business office, it'd be the same person. If I went back to the business office at Hampton, it might be a different person at the door, and I got to go tell the same story over again.
Mm.
But I have worked. I did a adjunct at ODU, and they had great resources. They had great resources. But I will say this: then I tell this to all of my students that when you have been in a place where you can explore and fail and grow, your confidence level with a person who has come from a non-HBCU because you've already practiced it. It's like the church. Now, church would give you opportunity to have speaking opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so your confidence level is okay. I've already done this.
Mm.
I already know who I am. I already know what I bring to the table. And so it's like your value. You're not waiting
Mm.
for somebody to validate you. And that's something that an HBCU does because they put you out there. It's like in church. Go ahead, honey. Go ahead. Just take your time.
Mm.
Same thing. Now, I'm gonna go off on you, but I'm gonna be hugging you and kicking you at the same time because I got your back, but you are definitely not gonna have some slack.
Mm.
It's
And,
that tough love.
yeah, and I think that's indicative of the Black experience as a whole.
Yes.
Um, One of the reasons I ended up going to Norfolk State was to be in a band. That was my primary reason. Like you have athletes that's the only reason they go into college. The only reason I went to college was to be in the band. And one of the things they told me when I first got there is we love you, but we're going to work you to death.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to rename you to your new name. And you will go out into the world with your new name and be great. But we're not going to take no slack. And they meant that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, the experiences sometimes we get there are a little bit more connected because when you have experiences with people that look like you, that not only are they're going to give you a hand, but they're also going to push you at the same time, is needed, especially in our communities today.
Well, let's just be honest though, okay? I mean, we're talking about differences in our community. There are a lot of differences in people, and it's eye opening. So I come from a small town, and school teachers are like the high of the status
Mm-hmm.
piece. I come to Hampton, I'm up here with lawyers' children, and doctor children, and senators' children, and TV star children,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a different there's differences there that you have to learn. I remember my roommate was from Mount Vernon, New York,
Mm-hmm.
and she kept saying, "You all don't have real department stores." Like we had Tallheimers and Hex, but
Right,
she says, "No, that's no Macy's," and I'm
right.
like, so I mean, again, everything is not warm and cushy,
Mm-hmm.
but again, growth is uncomfortable. So you will grow in a safe environment, but best believe it's going to be uncomfortable, even though you want to around your own people.
Yeah, yeah. But like you were saying, when you went to from that experience to St. Paul's, you already have a sense of who you are.
Oh, no
And
doubt.
and I think that is a great thing for a young person to already know. And you hit so hard, so close to home with the whole church experience. I'm a preacher's kid. So I get it. And that's why I'm not scared to talk to anybody. I'm not
You're right.
scared to. I think my nervous limit has to be like 10,000 people. Then I'll get nervous because I've spoken in front of hundreds and thousands of people, in front of church, in front of schools. So I've done that. That I can handle that, and I know I can handle that. So let's go work on some other things. So that kind of gives you a little, because we need as much help as we can get, and that gives us a little bit of, for lack of a better word, privilege. Because when you have that confidence in yourself, you can go out and tackle things that you don't think you normally would tackle.
And I'm going to tell you this. I worked the Olympics in 96,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked the Olympic Festival in 95. So in 95, and both of them, I'm in the press room type
Mm-hmm.
piece. And both of them was an elite situation. So, but the first time, again, I am my own director. I'm a female sports information director.
Mm-hmm.
And the people were in HBCU. They were looking at me like, okay, you have to make a media guide and you know how to do so much. They were talking to me like I was slow.
Right, right.
And I'm like,
Nah, I've
okay,
been
your
there.
title and my title are the same. Now, my voice inflection
Uh-huh.
of being Southern, they kind of took that to be slow. So my confidence was kind of shaking there for a moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because how I was being treated. But then I'm going like, okay, I know how to do. So then fast forward to 96, I'm working the basketball venue at Morehouse.
Mm-hmm.
And most everybody there come from Division I programs. So first, the television didn't work. They're up here trying to call somebody to work it. I'm from HBCU. I can figure it out. I'll go in the back and see what buttons to push. Then we had a reporter. I want to say he was from a country that he didn't know how to use a computer.
Mm-hmm.
And he needed a typewriter. And everybody was freaking out. I'm like, we're on an HBCU campus. There's somebody here with one. Let me go find one. I brought this man a typewriter and I became like girl wonder, because we don't have that fear and we all just know you just do this one thing.
Right.
When you in HBCU, you're gonna have different tasks and you're gonna be able to address it as if this is a wonderful challenge versus this is what I always say. It's when you see a wall, is it a wall or is it a door of opportunity?
Mm-hmm. Mm. Okay. All right. We got a lot to get. We still haven't. I'm going to get more into the magazine.
Okay.
I want to talk about the book. We
Okay.
we haven't even talked about Boo Williams or none of that.
Oh yeah.
So all right, let's talk about this magazine. What made you start a magazine?
Well, I was mentioning before that my people weren't understanding that they needed to get their name out there. To just do the work where you are and have somebody notice you or over, And so, and with paying me, people would get their pink slip and then they come to me that want me to help them get a job. And I'm like, nobody knows your name.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to package your specialized knowledge, your expertise. And so I was asked to do a 3-month blog for the Boss Network. And I was like, you know, and it was easy peasy. It was like, wow. And I'm like, if I could get my women to see the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
that there's something that you know how to do. And I had been in again, we talk about the book. I'm in this anthology, and I like the anthology method, but I didn't like the fact that anthology, you couldn't say the name of the schools, you couldn't say people's names, and you couldn't put pictures. So I said, can I take the same business model for an anthology and put it in a magazine? And so I had a young lady that I had seen her work. She had put some of my clients in her magazine previously. And I said, I just asked her, I said, how much would you charge me to do my own magazine? And so the people pay to be in the magazine. Again, it's the anthology business model, and it's been a hit. I just posted about being on the third one. So they are both on Amazon. They are both on Amazon. Significance in athletics and sports. Interesting enough, I really would like to get these in the hands of the young people who are interested in, especially Black girls, because it talks about all the different careers. There is a career, we talked about the White Shadow, Alliance of Social Workers in Sports. People didn't even know that that was a thing. And now, that was written before COVID. So after COVID, you see the importance of it because these kids are coming back after losing their eligibility, losing their mobility, losing maybe family members, you know? And so you need to have an understanding where they're coming back from because there's no thing you're coming back to normal. It's even a new normal. You know, it is what it is right now. And how do you serve them now? So that's a field. And right now, you know, it can be contracted work, and then Division 1 schools are bringing in mental game coaches and sports psychology because it's two different things. So again, if you know what I'm talking about, both magazines have individuals in these fields. I think in this one, we're talking about hypnotic therapy to help athletes. Um, and then I just talked about diversity of HBCUs. You don't think about that you need because that's another career people are all getting assigning. And she had just gone to get certification for that because just because you're a person of color does not mean that you should be leading diversity efforts.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, see, you didn't open up a whole nother question. To see, I can't stay on my timeline.
All right.
I want you to touch on that. How important now, and over your career in sports, uh, do you see the difference in mental health and sports being related? And like you said, are there positions where there are psychologists that are like mental coaches? So what? How did you? How do you? I'm trying to see how I want to frame this question. What's the difference between when you started and now versus the importance of mental health with athletes?
Now, here's the thing: you don't even know that you really did send me a good assist or a good alley oop. Okay, because that's one reason why I wrote in this book, Removing the Face.
Boom.
Okay.
See what we did right there?
Yeah, yeah, slam dunk, boom. Okay. So, uh, because being a first has a lot of pressures with it. And I was that. I was the first full-time female SID in the CIAA, working for the first female AD in the CIAA. And so you got a lot of eyes on you. And so, and again, I mentioned I was athletic director at 28. And I think one of the things I will say is it's not maturity, it's more about wisdom. And like I talked about relationships. Well, I was really worried about relationships. A person talking to me or the person with the title, do they want something from me? Then as I become mature and wise, I realize, yeah, they do. That's what relationships are, give and take. And it's not disingenuous. And so when I began doing it, I didn't have an understanding and I had a lot of mental things going on because I was not, I wasn't mature enough with that. And so many people have traumas, okay? And the interesting thing, because again, you bring yourself to your job. And the younger you are, you have less experiences to pull from. So it can become more of a trauma thing. So I would say now, with people like me, I can see where a person is about to go down the wrong line. Okay. And so that's why I wrote my chapter, Public Figure Mask, Exit Stage Left. I put a lot of pressure on myself because I knew a lot of people were watching me, how I was doing. And if I didn't do well, there was never going to be another woman in these positions. So when I got to the conference office, I had just gone through a divorce. And I was so appreciative of the opportunity to be able to stand on my own. So now, being a single woman in the business, maybe having children, maybe not, it's not a stigma,
Mm-hmm.
okay? But it was about 25 years ago. And especially me being young. Older women would maybe being a coach and then happen. I was administrator from the very beginning all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to be able to give tools because I'm so happy that I've seen women today. See, they want to be able to say, I made it to the mountaintop. So that's like going straight up the mountain. And then you get it. And then you stand at the mountain and you're there by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even remember how you got there. You got family members who got married, had children, and you don't even remember, did you get an invite? You know,
Right.
you miss all the Thanksgivings and Christmases but everybody's so proud of you because you made a social commissioner or you made AD. Now what I'm saying, that people are choosing significance over success. I've seen women who have been a Division 1 AD who decided to take a, uh, a lieutenant job, associate AD, or chief of staff somewhere, okay, and not concerned about what society thinks of them, but knows what's best for them and their family.
Mm-hmm.
There was a winning AD in the SWAT. I mean, she got there's an award that you get for the number of championships. She just stepped down to go work for um, a sport organization, okay, in development. You really measure your level of being in a toxic situation versus the image that you are portraying, and it's just not worth it. And I'm seeing, and I'm telling them all the time now. And again, I had clients tell me because I said therapy is not a dirty word,
Mm-hmm.
that actually politics is not a dirty word. Politics is nothing but relationships. It's like playing spades. Who has the higher hand wins. However, you can still win with no spade
Mm-hmm.
because what type of relationships you have with people. So spend your time building better relationships versus being upset with somebody who's not supporting you or they undermined you. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So, but if you don't have your mind right, you're going to continue to just keep the mess going.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me? So again, therapy can help you reposition how you look at something. You can go from fixed mindset to growth mindset. This is the kind of work I do with my clients because skill set don't make me difference. I tell you how to use MailChimp to get your email list, to get your tickets sold. None of that. If your relationship with people, if you think people coming after you, and when you are first and you don't have anybody to compare that to, it really is something you gotta get your mind right with. And so that's why I talk about some of the tools. Like I use the book, The Four Agreements. Again, I use therapy, and I'm seeing more of my people embracing. Number one, I'm going to set my own value system, my own compass. I'm going to use therapy because if we're talking about the mental health of our students, what about your mental health? I asked a question in my Facebook group that goes with my podcast. I said, was Naomi and Simone a trigger for you? Do you push through? Do you seek help? Or I got this? And I got a lot of feedback. And so again, it tells me I'm on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
Because can you imagine your to-do list never can be done because you got a player who passed out doing preseason football. You got a donor who wants this. You got some president's office who wants this. The conference office who wants this. You got a lot of moving parts. And unless you know how to deal with the stressors, and they'll let the stressors deal with you, which becomes a mental health piece. Health, all right? Mental wealth. You get it?
Yes. 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 All right. So again, you did it again to me, but I'm gonna try to stay on track on subject. Let's talk about your podcast.
Okay.
I'm very proud of you, um,
Thank you.
because you are, before I was even in the podcasting, you were well established in the podcasting field. And the common theme of this conversation, I want people to realize how you specialize in being different.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those with the podcast, your podcast has been out how many years?
8 years. I'm in my 8th season.
8 years. So 8 years ago, you had the foresight to jump into that medium. What were your inspirations for starting the podcast?
Well, Nikki Curry, who is out of Chesapeake,
Mm.
she was my publicist, and she introduced me to Clark Garrison, and he had the network, Survival Radio Network. And so I have to give him all the credit because, again, because I did I think 48-hour podcast with Nikki's other client, she was like, I have a better fit for you. So I told him my goal was not to be on Spotify and iTunes. Mine was to give a platform so my people could maybe listen to the career path of other women who look like them,
Mm.
to give them encouragement. And honestly, I had one young lady who took who started as a coach, then an administrator, but then the ramp off to have children. And she said that the podcast gave her life because she knew that she could get back in.
Mm.
And so she got back in, and then she hired me to come do a staff retreat. So it all worked out. But definitely, I had a goal to be able to twofold give the women in the business a place to be able to see themselves. And then for those who say they don't know what minority women are, I'm like, oh no, you're a lie because you didn't go to my podcast. So it was twofold. And so by being in a network, I was told I had to have a Facebook group. I didn't know what that was. Okay. And then I was told I got to have a logo. So they sent a guy with a logo for me. Asked me what I wanted. So he picked the pictures and he did the logo. And so now, 8 seasons later, I have a Facebook group of 2,200 women.
Nice.
Or I don't say women, I just say 2,200 people. Because
Okay.
I do have like maybe 1% or 2% men.
Mhm. So your goal is to have other women, in these administrative roles. What advice would you give? And I guess so. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up the episode, but I'm gonna have to have you on again because it's stuff we hadn't even talked about yet. We haven't even unpacked a lot of this stuff. All right, so this is how I end all of my episodes, and I guess this question aligns with it. If you had a young Monique come to you and ask you for advice, what would you tell her?
Advice concerning sports or advice, period?
Advice, period, but leaning towards something in sports.
Okay. All right. Well, I had this often. I have a young lady that was working with me at Boo Williams. She
Okay.
was her father is the track coach at Hampton. And so she was her little summer job was to help me with the COVID escorts teams. And so she said she wanted to go into business. and management. And I said, so what are you doing right now? Is this not managing people?
Mhm.
All right. And then we are doing customer service and business. And then I said, so there's business in sports. In sports, you can find almost everything: facility, grounds, talk about social work, psychology, mass media, social media, art, photography, almost everything. Um, oh, we talk about a little bit about the gaming, just a tiny
Mhm.
little bit. Um, so if you like it, again, I would say explore intern, okay, for free. All right, because if somebody's paying you, that means you can't say goodbye.
Mhm.
So you want to do internships and explore and volunteer to see if you like, if you don't like. And some people are just not into the greeting and marketing. Some people are behind the scenes and want to plan, want to just do the emails, want to be able to just put up a banner, all right, and leave it, and then don't have to interact with the people. I'm a great planner, but I'm not really get good with the little kids. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like I can go hire somebody, you do the kids, and you make sure the kids are out of here by this time. I do what the parents are paying. So you got to be able to explore what you like and what you don't like. But there's a lot to explore. I knew I couldn't be a cheerleader
Mhm.
because yeah, that's not me. I want to be a support of using um um uh I can't even say dancing or whatnot, because even if I was over cheerleaders, I'm going to say this is what we want the crowd to say. I'm going to produce it.
Mhm.
All right. And I'm going to teach them the game, because I can't understand why you don't know what needs to be said, when to be said. So
Mhm.
I believe in educating to influence. So if a young person asks me that, I would say, and I have this all the time, because you're not the only fathers kind of asking about for their daughter. I say, let's explore what you do like. And I'm trying to think. One young lady was talking about, I want to say makeup or something. And I've had students who were good with nutrition. I said, why don't you write a list of all um, the fast food places that are open after 9 o'clock. So when you travel, which ones are going to have the best options for nutrition for what you eat? So, again, I would say my God given gift is my creative problem solving ability. So whatever you bring, I'm gonna be able to help the young person maybe to see how it may fit. But it's a two-way conversation. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? That help?
Awesome. So, how can people get in touch with you? What's your social medias? How can they get the magazine? How can they get the book? Give it to us.
Okay, so I really do like to talk on LinkedIn. Okay, I know people are like on the other, but LinkedIn to me is more professional, and I actually look at that first thing in the morning.
Mhm.
So I'm Monique A. Smith. Now I do have a store. It is called payhip.com/seeds of empowerment. That's the name of my company. Seeds, SEEDS, empowerment. And I have a special offer for all of your listeners. Okay.
Hold
All
on,
right.
hold on. Special offer.
Yes, yes. And I think I'm gonna make it for anything that's in the store. I was gonna make it just for um the magazine, but because the magazine, both we have two magazines, um that it has different careers in it. I want to be able to get this out. We're gonna get 50% off if you use a coupon 757. 757. And if you're interested in a career in athletic administration and you want to read my journey, um, this is also inside the store. So
Thank you. We thank you very much for that.
we got one more thing. So you
Okay.
want to listen to my podcast? Podcast is on chatinthegarden.com. Chat in the Garden. ChatInTheGarden.com. So you can listen to all the podcasts.
Which I have been.
Okay. Which one you like?
So I'm not even gonna lie and say I can pull out a name. But last night I was listening to one of the young ladies and You Speak. I'm not sure which episode it was. I think
But what we talking about?
I think it was the last one when you was talking about business administration within let me see. I'm gonna look it up since I got it right here.
Okay.
I'll tell you exactly who it was.
And that's what I love, because I mean, people listen to that and it becomes a bridge. So let's say that you were a young lady that want to be in the business. You would go and say, go to LinkedIn. Hey, I listen to your podcast with Monique. I have a follow-up question. Guess what? Now you're connected. Now you have that comfort level thinking a person's approachable.
You
And
got
that's
me.
what we need.
You got
That's
me
what we
logging
need.
into my other computer.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I was just curious because we've had some great, great, great. This one lady who wrote a book called "Love Is the Root of Resistance," and her father was a Black Panther, and she's also a professor. But she talks about how to prepare our student athletes to be activists, and I keep telling folks, your kids are gonna come back a little different. They're gonna come back. They're gonna be saying, "I'm having a mental health day. I don't want to compete." But you got to educate them that Simone said her staff said when she was able. It wasn't like she just decided.
Right.
There was a level of that, So you got to be able to educate them. Name, likeness, and image. You better get a lawyer. All
Mm-hmm.
right. If you in Georgia, you got to give 70%, 75% of your earnings back to the university. If you want to use the logo, you have to pay some of those schools to do that. So you got to be ready for these kids to have their voice.
And see, here you go again. We didn't even talk about how the NCAA and are letting the students get paid. So that's going to be a whole nother episode. But it was Rashana Cobb.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was that was a replay. That was a replay from last season. So every season, I award the podcast with the most listeners with an award called the Deb Award. And Deborah in the Bible was the one who gave the wisdom under the tree. So the tree is the garden. The person gave the most wisdom out the garden gets the Deb Award. So last week I was on vacation and I played a replay. So that's what you heard.
Yes, it was. All right, let me go because you're going to bring me down another rabbit hole. But we got to have you back because there are a lot of things we want to talk about. And we didn't touch on the athletes and the NCAA. And you're the perfect person to talk about that. And I want to talk about that. So I got to have you back.
Well, I tell you, I work with the administrators working with that. You know what I mean? And so I'm looking to see who becomes, again, in the magazine, becomes the expert that I can promote to talk about that. You follow what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I got too many moving parts.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for taking your time out today. You can find this episode and video and audio at 757renaissanceman.com. We've been having a great conversation with Miss Monique A.J. Smith. I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And please come back.
Okay.
Awesome. See how easy that was? Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Monique. I'm Sean. The 757renaissanceman.com. And we are out.